it's a sign of really having made it, you know, to get on that cover. I mean, usually in a commercial sense, but not, you know, in a, you know, I don't know, there's a lot of significance to that cover, a lot of resonance. I think having to do with who's been on it, having to do with how good it's always looked, having to do with its great photographers doing it. The person has to have we hope, a great eye, a skill to take photographs, but somebody who can, you know, bring out the personality of the person that they're shooting, who can, you know, draw them out and get them to do something sort of interesting and refreshing, something that gives you sort of an insight into who they are, what they're thinking, or what their attitude is. The best way to accomplish that is take off their clothes. With that issue is trying to represent the sort of the family of rock and roll, of the greats and of rock and roll who are still living and make rock and roll what it is then, what it was then, and what it is today, are collected. And we could call this issue a Hall of the Rolling Stone Hall of Fame, or the family of rock. And it ranges, you know, from Chuck Berry and you know, Little Richard and Fats Domino, you know, through today, through, you know, Axl and rap groups and Bruce Springsteen and U2. So, you know, we're trying to just pick the greats, you know, and take a really intimate look and seeing together, you know, it's the family.
Basically, this issue consists of 6 portfolios. We photographed about 60 different musical rock and roll legends. 6 different photographers did the portfolios. They are Herb Ritz, Matthew Ralston, Albert Watson, Bruce Weber, Kurt Marcus, and Mark Seliger. There's a 10,000-word essay about the history of photography in rock and roll and how things have developed over the last 40 years, and who was important and how things changed. When we first started talking about doing this issue, we weren't quite sure how we would select the photographers, or how many subjects each photographer would shoot. But we knew that we wanted to use people that had worked for the magazine a long time, that had individual styles and could bring something, you know, very special to this issue. And we had a meeting with the editors and the art director and Jan, and decided to come up with a big list. And you know, we just basically selected the most important people, most important legends of rock and roll. And then I had a list at the beginning of who I wanted to shoot who, but of course time and planning made it impossible. I pretty much stuck to the list, but in some cases people would be available on one day and I would have to change photographers. But I tried to match, as I always do, I tried to match photographers with the subjects that I thought would work out well. And I also tried to have new photographers shoot the subjects, because a lot of the people that we photographed have been photographed before many times by the magazine. I mean, it was interesting when we did the Aerosmith shoot, because it started off, we had Stephen and Joe together on the backdrop, and they both looked great. And we shot quite a bit of film, but the thing was that they were both such strong characters that I was looking at them and they were sort of like canceling out each other. I mean, they wanted to move or they wanted to pose, and they seemed like the space that they were in, they needed to break out of that space. And you know, I suggested to Albert that maybe we do individuals, and as soon as we did that, everything started happening. I mean, they were so strong individually, and they really got to do, each one got to do what he wanted to do.
I think that the photography has definitely changed with the music and music business. What you had in the beginning was this very stiff, formal kind of posing where, you know, they'd march the Supremes and the Temptations into one studio here on Broadway. They'd all be like this, and you would take care of it. As things loosened up in the 60s, so did the photography, and a lot of musicians suffered people on the road with them. So you had a lot of candid shots. You had a lot of eyewitness views of what life was like on the road. And also I think you had more of a sense of, particularly in the late 60s, this rock and roll as family, rock and roll stars as family. It's almost formal again in that the photo session, the rock photo session now is, in general, quite an event with the stylist, the caterer, the concept, you know, in many cases. And you see taken to its extreme the kind of work that Annie Leibovitz started doing on the cover of Rolling Stone, where the photograph is a portrait of the person, but it says something about their career or the album that they're working on at that time. And that's where you get Bette Midler in The Bed of Roses, and she had the film The Rose, and Fleetwood Mac in their bed, all of them in the same bed, which Annie tells me was a comment on their lives at the time. That was her own little editorial comment. And you sort of reach today's apogee with a person like Madonna, who is, of all the photographers I talk to, she is the one that everyone wants a crack at, because she's sort of the ultimate photographer's muse.
We always start with the image, whether it's an illustration or a photograph. We always start with the headline. We always start with the story or the interview. We know what it is. We know all of those elements. And then as designers, we try to just meld those things together to where the words look like they sound, to where the type looks like the person's name, to where it responds well to that image, and just try to integrate the whole thing.
I think some of my best work has been, personality work has definitely been with Rolling Stone. I mean, there's no way that it couldn't have been. I mean, I would say for sure. And there's always interesting people that I'm working with, you know, shooting. Really respect photography, and I think that's been one of their mainstays from Annie in the beginning and then everyone else now. That the photography has always been a key factor in Rolling Stone, and realizing it properly, and down to the typeset and what they'll try. You know, a lot of magazines in America will not run a black and white cover. In fact, I know very few. And the fact that they'll do this and it sells and it works, you know, they go out on a limb a little bit, but it's Rolling Stone and they can, and that's another great thing. I really enjoyed him because he has a whole side to him I don't think a lot of people see. He's very sensitive. There's a very sensitive side that's it's interesting and very kind. Can be, some people say, like Madonna, have so many sides to her, you can have a layout with so many different things that work. And some people only want to reveal one side, or too shy to do anything, or too uptight. And, you know, the great thing is to work with people over the years and as you change, they change, and you come back to them, and you get a progression, and you hopefully start where you left off before and get something even more special.
Oh, I could start crying. Well, you know, they were very, they were wonderful. They were, you know, I mean, now you look back and you remember all the really wonderful, great, good things. I mean, they were very, you know, magical, wonderful days. I mean, they were, there was a lot of work, really a lot of hard work. We never stopped. From the very onset, I was surrounded by people who, kids really. I mean, we were really a bunch of kids, you know. And I've said this before, but yeah, we were a bunch of kids. But at the same time, what we did, the most important thing I learned from Rolling Stones was, when I look back now and think about it, is that I was working in an environment where everything that we did really mattered. You know, everything that we really did was important. Lennon was probably one of the first people that I was going to photograph that loomed very large in my mind. I mean, this was someone I really did listen to their music. You know, I listened to the Beatles. The Beatles were very important. The music was very important, and this was someone that I was very nervous about what it was going to be like, and what was amazing about the session and meeting him was that I was to find out, and it was to set a precedent for the way I was to work with people from then on, was, you know, he worked very hard to set me at ease and make me feel comfortable. I mean, this is not an unusual idea. What was unusual is at the last minute she wouldn't take her clothes off. Jan called me at home at around 7 o'clock and said someone that resembled John's description was taken into Roosevelt Hospital. So I went to Roosevelt Hospital and stood the night there in the, I guess, the community room there, waiting for an announcement. And early in the morning, the doctor came out. And I remember I was completely numb. I stood on a chair, and I photographed the doctor giving the death announcement. You know, it was like sort of eerie thing. You know, I turned my attention to getting the film out of the lab, and got it over to Rolling Stone, and they started to work with the photographs. I think there was like a 24-hour period there. I came in the following day, and they were mocking up covers with John, portrait just with John. You know, I had done some close-ups of John's face and his head, and you know, I went in to see Jan, and I said, Jan, you know, I promised John that the cover would be him and Yoko. And Jan backed me up. He, you know, I said it was the last promise.
I know I'm not a model. If I was a model, I'd be excited, but I'm just glad they wanted to interview me. My words are more important than the picture, you know? So.
Don't move. Don't move. Take this light. Take this and move it out of the way. That's great, man. Let's pick up right here. Put your hands a little like that. Another way. Good. Right there. Great. Chin down.
I don't know, when I see that face, that, you know, it's like, what kind of feeling do I get from that? It's like breaking out. We broke out through the other side, you know, we climbed out of that, you know, I talk about that, the drug days and the hole and the muck and the mire, but when I tell you we crawled out of a hole that you wouldn't want to even go near, let alone live down in, I ain't just it's no lie. So when I see that face, I go, oof, you know, enough anyway. You know, I'm going to try to lay back on that head, but it was like, you know, I'm breaking out, and I'm so glad to be here again, you know. Janice and Jimmy, I knew them, and they're not here. They were looking up. They would do anything to be back here, you know. So when I look at this, I think, look at the smirk on Joey Kramer's face. You know, is that about happy or what? So it's just, you know, it's, you know, with a little reluctance, you know, being a cover of Rolling Stone, you know, the old kiss of death, it's like, whoops, wait a minute. It's great. No, it isn't. It is. No, it isn't. So, but it's okay, right? It's okay. It's just fuel to go out and kick ass the next day again, you know, just to nonstop.
Yeah, it's great, but I don't think it should be that heavy. It's about half the scope. I would say half the scope. Stay with it. If we shoot a few more on Stephen, you don't need to double it. See? But they're certainly more flexible when I can work them as individuals.
I like the idea as individuals.
Oh yeah, sure, because it's a That's it. And come straight to.
Rolling Stone has a reputation of covers, I guess, that not only mean business for the magazine, but also have something to do with the culture. So in all honesty, the only covers I think that I've got framed are my Rolling Stone covers, because it meant a lot to me at a point in my life, particularly in sort of a crossover, that a music-orientated magazine would recognize or acknowledge you in the film business. To be on the on the cover of Rolling Stone was a unique honor, I think, and still is.
I mean, Albert has got to go, see, a photographer's got to go and try and distill one particular moment, boom, and it's got to mean a myriad of things, right? And it has to him and it has to other people. So maybe he's right, but you know, you're asking the subject of the picture. That's very difficult for me to say because, yeah, I guess it does. You know, am I pretending? You know what I mean? When I'm the subject, I do, unless it comes to putting on halos and fairy wings, pretty much what the photographer wants. You know, I'll get the message. You know, I mean, it's like, oh, you want this?
So you can just pull this out, sort of.
Well, it's because there's a lot of me, right? I mean, it's not difficult. All I'm doing is killing myself smoking. I do more. I go through 2 packs on photograph sessions. I mean, maybe under my own, maybe half a pack a day. I don't, you know, they're killing me, these photographers. What am I supposed to say though nice about them? They're killing me, you know?
Good afternoon, Rolling Stone. May I help you, please? One moment, please. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, great.
And you got it. We get a page in like this, the tissue actually gives us our instruction. And following those instructions, an hour or 2 later, we end up with a number of component parts. And from these component parts, we'll end up with 4 negatives.
These are the composed negatives. We have them all done now in the yellow, red, blue, and black. And we add the red to it. And the blue. And the black. And we have our final proof.
Well, we're big rock singers, we got golden fingers, and we're loved everywhere we go. We sing about beauty and we sing about truth at $10,000 a show. We take all kind of pills to give us all kind of thrills, but the thrill we've never known is the thrill that'll get you when you get your picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone. Wanna see my picture on the cover? Stone. Wanna buy